Welcome to the 24th Man podcast. We welcome on today Ben the Mantis Marr, one of Parbourd's finest. Benny, how are you?
Eddie, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Glad to be here, lads. Thanks for having me on. All is well on my end. Our day off today, off training, so just been cruising, lads. Yourselves?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Hey, talk us through how you got that nickname, the Mantis.
The Mantis. So it actually started from the boys at Rat Park, from some of the lower graders. I know you probably know him very well, Benny. Josh Gerard, Ed Doyle, a few of those blokes. Obviously, you probably can't tell, but Benny, I know you know them, quite long and gangly and lanky. So sort of, I suppose you could say, similar to a praying mantis, and I sort of run a bit. You could say like a praying mantis as well. So the boys at the Rats sort of gave me it, and then more so like the lower graders, the older boys, they were the ones who called me it. And then from there, I kind of when I went to the sevens. The boys were always saying that I was tall and long, and then I said, actually, the boys at Rat Park give me named the Mantis, and then they all sort of got on board as well. So pretty much at the Ratties, all the old boys of the Ratties, and now at the Aussie Sevens, I'm known as Mantis, or short for Tiss. Tiss is sort of the one that's used quite frequently as well. So yeah, long story short, pretty much just because of my body stature of being long, skinny, and run a bit awkwardly.
Mate, you're not so skinny these days. Put on a bit of size.
Slowly, mate, slowly.
When you were growing up, you played a bit of rugby league and rugby union, or was it just rugby union?
No, rugby league. So I kind of grew up playing both, and when you're young, you can kind of play sports all day, every day. So I played. It was for the Harbour or Mona Vale Raiders initially, then to the Harbour Devils. So did that till about 16, and then that's sort of when you kind of got to choose one or the other. I played a bit of AFL as well and sort of stuff. Just try to chance my arm at everything, and then they sort of fall on the same days as well when you get a bit older. So I went to rugby union, playing St Augustine's on a Saturday through the winter after I stopped playing league for the Devils, and then that was in the winter, sorry, and then the summer was just all basketball. So they were sort of my two main sports, finishing school, and then when you get out of school, you kind of got to choose just sort of the be all and end all, and that was rugby union. So, but definitely played a bit of league.
Yeah, nice. And then I guess, as you alluded to before, you're now in the Australian 7's setup. Talk us through like what it's like being in that sort of environment and on the world circuit, and it's sort of something a little bit different to the 15-a-side game.
Yeah, mate, it's awesome. To be honest with Benny, I think if you ask any of the boys who are in the program at the moment, or anyone who's been in the program, it's a pretty lucky program to be in. You get to, not only are you playing rugby for a living, you get to travel the world. And I mean, this is the sort of the beauty of the Sevens, is see all the really nice big cities of the world and get all that travel experience for free, I might add as well. But that's not the important thing. It's also just getting to play footy and seeing these nice places, mate. And in terms of in a professional program, it's just a good for me to kind of experience that and see sort of what it's like to be a professional. And don't get me wrong, it's taken me took me a bit of time to kind of just kind of get that professional mindset, and I'm still sort of learning things as I go. But as you know, Benny, it's a bit different from when you're playing Rats, Shoot Shield, and big piss ups every Saturday sort of thing. So I've learned a lot in my past sort of, what is it now? Probably been about 6 to 8 months in the program. And yeah, like Sevens is obviously, there's the differences between 15s, and obviously the obvious differences, but it's good because it's it keeps you, not the rugby doesn't, but you got to be in pretty good shape in terms of your fitness, and a lot of running, which I like. Sort of suits me a little bit. And I enjoy this game of Sevens. We were lucky enough to play when I was at the Raddies there. As you know, we had a pretty good side there with some of those older blokes like Hamo and Joshy Holmes and a few of those guys who, that's sort of, I learned the basics of Sevens off those blokes. So I sort of had a decent pedigree, and then was lucky enough to get picked up. Johnny Minetti, the coach, kind of gave me a call at the beginning of last year, and I went in there. So, yeah, mate, long story short, it's been a great experience, and I've loved every minute of it. And we've got a pretty good team. We've had some good wins and some good moments, some special moments. So just trying to take it as it comes, mate, and enjoy it along the way.
Yeah,
Would you
nice.
say that?
I know. Go, George.
I was going to say this is no disrespect to the Sevens boys in the UK, but obviously if you look at where England were as a team and where they are now in terms of funding and the exposure that the sport gets over here, would you say in Australia it's still at the top and it's still getting all the funding it can and all the exposures? Are they still driving to be, the best on the circuit, as opposed to, I think if you look at England's team a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, compared to where they are now, they're obviously just not really the same.
Yeah. I think Australia is sort of similar in this sense. We were the opposite. We were sort of we struggled there for quite a while, and struggling to get any podium finishes. This is sort of a few years going back now, and that was sort of. And then obviously COVID happened. They cut a lot of funding, around that time. And I think just before I got into the program, so sort of beginning of last year, there was only about 7 blokes fully contracted, and it wasn't in a great spot. And then sort of as COVID kind of went, we moved past COVID, and they started, Johnny Minetti took over as head coach. He sort of started to get a good crew of lads in there, and picked up a lot of shoot shield blokes to come in there. And as we sort of gotten a better team, and had a lot more tournaments together as a group, we start winning. And as you expect, when you win, you sort of, it becomes a lot easier to get more money, get more funding, and you get more exposure. Start to build a bit of a brand as a team, as a program. I think for the England boys, as you said, it's quite the opposite. They sort of were strong, and then they've kind of struggled recently. And now, obviously, coming into an Olympic year next year, they've changed now. It's no longer the England; it's the Great Britain team. So they're now, so it's the English, Scotland, and Wales all in the one team. And I was speaking to a few of the boys recently at one of the tournaments, and sort of they're not centralised at all. So they kind of mix up between, they have a couple of weeks training camp in England, and then might have a week to go back home, or then I'll go to a camp in Scotland. So it can be tough, and I've never been part of that sort of program where it's not centralised. So I've been sort of lucky, but winning does help, and winning becomes it's a lot easier for Rugby Australia for them to kind of allocate us more funds and say, well, look, they're on the right trajectory, so we can kind of reward them with whatever it may be. But I understand what you're saying with the English boys. I think it was tough for them a little bit. Now that they are the Great Britain team, I think that they're slowly starting to, get a bit more chemistry with their team, and build a better program for them, and then they're starting to get better results as well. So, which is good to see.
What are they like on the piss after the tournament, Benny?
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. The Great Britain boys. They get amongst it. The Irish boys, they get amongst it. Obviously, the Aussies, we don't mind a beer or two. But most of the teams are pretty good. Then you got some of the European teams like Spain. They're some good blokes. So I don't really have a problem with any of the teams. Usually, sort of, it's all business, and you kind of say hello, because we all stay in the same hotel. You see, so you always see them around, and you kind of say a quick hello. But it's usually pretty. It's all business till the weekend. Then you play over the weekend, and then Sunday go out for a beer or two, and that's when you kind of catch up a bit more and have a laugh. But that's another thing, a beautiful thing of the Sevens as well. It's nice and social. You meet a bunch of new people, and I've met some new mates from all over the world, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. Do you? Because when before you went into the Sevens program full time, you were working a full time job in an office. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Out in,
How did you
in the city there?
What were you doing? Were you in finance? Not finance. You were in
broking. So I was an insurance broker
right.
for a firm called GSA, which I loved as well.
Yeah.
And was complimented my footy pretty well when I was playing for the Rats. And good industry to be in. Nice and social. Lots of networking. Lots of rugby sort of plays in that scene. So it helped kind of coming from a rugby background in terms of meeting people and clients, etc. So yeah, I love that. But I mean, obviously, when this opportunity came up to go play a bit of footy for a living, was sort of too hard to say no to.
Did you find that like it took you a while to transition, not only physically, psychologically, but maybe like without going into details, but like with the salary too?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, definitely physically, just the conditioning, like my body getting conditioned to the, if we train 4 times a week on field, 4 times a week, and pretty heavy, pretty big sessions on my legs, and as I said, it's a lot of running when there's only 7 blokes on a field versus 15. So that took a time. Like I did a hammy sort of early on, just purely based on just my legs weren't used to the load. But then as you get on, and that gets better, and obviously kind of what you do on a weekend, and trying to stay sort of healthy and stay clean and stay off the piss and off the dance floors on the weekend, that also helps. So which I also learned as well. The mind as well, yeah, that kind of ties in with it. Just sort of like it's your job at the end of the day, and if you want to be good at your job, you've got to kind of do all the right things mentally, and what you eat, and so sort of how you conduct yourself off the field all goes into play in that. And that, the salary's not sort of nothing too sort of shabby. And when you kind of think of you get to travel around the world for free and see these places, and you stay in hotels where everything's paid for, your food, so your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's not too bad. And as I sort of said, I was happy to, not that it was a massive pay decrease, but I was happy to take a bit of a cut on that to do what I'm doing, and it's not every sort of, I won't be able to do this forever, and so like, I as well make the most of it and enjoy playing footy and having a good time doing it while I still can.
Yeah. When you first went into the 7's program full time, obviously like you gravitated towards 7's straight out of school, and I guess that's something like you're able to do pretty well. Did you like pick the brains more of your coaches, as in John Maneni and assistant coaches more when you got in the program, or did you think physically you were off the pace, so you kind of spoke to your strength and conditioning coaches a little more than your head coach?
I'd say probably both. Definitely both. Like I think physically, physically I need to kind of get a bit stronger and quicker. Like I'm still need to get a few yards of pace onto me. So whatever I can kind of do, to speaking to the S&C, and they know that sort of thing. We wear GPSs, we do timings and sort of stuff. Like they know where my opportunities lie, and so they will sort of say, look, we need to get, so we're working on that. They're very aware, and then I'll sort of say, look, how can I do this better, or X, Y, Z better, and if it's be in the gym, because power, got to get more power. But then I think with the coaches as well, it's like anything, especially, and it's enhanced more when you're in a professional program, is you want to keep improving no matter what you're doing, and everything gets analyzed. They're filming everything, and so it's not like even if I didn't want to even if I wanted to sort of hide and try my best to hide with things, you wouldn't be able to, because everything's filmed and everything. They look at everything, so it's kind of a two-way street. My coaches will come up to me and say, like, you need to be doing this better, or we need you passing better, or whatever it may be, tracking better, and then vice versa as well. I'll kick it up, I'm sort of struggling with something, or I want to get better at something. So, and that's sort of, I suppose, the beauty of a professional program rather than maybe just club footy, is that you have those luxuries that are always there. As I said, everything's filmed, so you can go on to huddle and analyze your sessions, your passing, tackling, whatever it may be. So it's sort of, it's quite cool that you get to do that.
Yeah. How do you go biting your tongue these days? Like I know when we first started working together straight out of school, had this young, scrawny Ben Marr, and I think, I can't remember what it was, but you told me to beat it one day, and I just said, this little I'm going to fucking make him run. How do you go these days?
I'm better, obviously, but I mean, Johnny, the coach, and I have a pretty good relationship where I push the envelope sometimes, and bit of a pest here and there while I can, but it's all pretty tongue in cheek. Like I've sort of learnt, that there's maybe not back then with you, Benny, but now there's sort of a lot of time. There's a time and place for it all, and there's certain thing, certain things you can say and certain things you can't say, especially at a professional level. So I'm just sort of, when I do it, I get a bit lippy. It's just all just a bit tongue in cheek and kind of, it's good for morale with the boys, and it's good to kind of lighten up sometimes. And but I wouldn't get away with it anymore if I was carrying on like that, because it's just you just get hunted straight away, and they wouldn't stand for it, because it's all it's a lot of business. We have a good time, but it's a lot of hard work and a lot of switching on. And if you want to win in these sort of tournaments, you got to be able to do that. But we keep it lighthearted as well. But when it's time to switch on, it's time to switch on, which I'm getting, Benny. I'm getting.
I think you make a good point there. Like, I remember, obviously there were times when we had when we exchanged words, but I think also you were also very good at psychologically making that switch of, like, having a yarn with your mates and having silly buggers, and then when it got to the competitive times or really switching on for training, you personally were able to flick that switch psychologically really well, and that's a skill in itself.
Yeah,
so I think,
yeah.
Did what was I going to go to next? I can't remember now. The next part I was going to say was effectively, when obviously we spoke about transitioning from your job, how did you find transitioning from playing 15-a-side mostly to then going full-time sevens?
So was that? Did you say just transitioning from centre and 15 to? Was that what that was?
Transitioning from playing 15-a-side game to 7-a-side.
Yeah. It sort of like wasn't too bad, because I played plenty of sevens going through the Rats. We played those two or three tournaments at the beginning of the year, so I had played plenty of sevens before. It just probably was about a year. Would have been about a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years since I played last before getting picked up in the program. Excuse me. So I mean, not a massive sort of nothing I was freaking out about, because it's nothing that I hadn't done before. It was probably more so just wow, now I'm on the professional. Sorry, now I'm on like the world circuit. These are the best of the best sevens players around the world. Like this is kind of it's a step up, and I sort of you always sort of back yourself. I back myself to be able to compete, but you kind of just don't know until you get out there and give it a crack and get exposed to it. But no, the transition wasn't too bad. I as I said, played plenty of sevens. Kind of didn't see it coming too hard, because played a lot of sevens just coming out of school for the Ratties, with and then sort of had some rumours of people looking at me in terms of whatever its representative team it might be, and then sort of died down for a while, and I was kind of just more focusing on playing 15s and doing well with the 15s and trying to win a shoot shield. And then all of a sudden, when Johnny Manetti became coach, he was massive on. He's got an ear close to the ground with shoot shield. He obviously won a few competitions with Eastwood coaching, so he's pretty involved in the shoot shield. He loves the shoot shield and keeps a close eye on it. So once he got in, he was pretty keen to getting a bunch of shoot shield guys in there, who potentially were playing good footy for a while but didn't get a crack in a super team or whatever it may be. So not only myself, but guys like Tim Clemens from Sydney Uni, Matty Gonzalez from Eastwood, Henry Patterson from Eastern Suburbs. So there's a bunch of guys. Like, a lot of our teams now is built up with guys who were playing some good footy in shoot shield in first grade for a couple of years or whatever it may be. And I think that's why we sort of have quite a good side, and we get on pretty well, because we've all sort of we've all had our different sort of pathways coming through, and we're all just sort of happy and not taking it for granted, mate, and just enjoying each other's company and digging in for each other. So it's been good.
Is there any guys in that group that are like the real leaders? Like they've been there for a while. They've been in the program for a little bit longer than everyone else.
Yeah. So Nick Maloof, he's been in the program, I think, 10 odd years. He's our skipper. He's like, being the captain of an Australian team is a massive feat as it is, and that sort of says it all about what kind of leader he is. He's awesome. So he's been there for a while. Henry Hutchison's another one who's been there. He's been there since he straight out of sort of high school. So they're sort of our main leaders. And then we've got blokes like Moz Longbottom, again, been there for a while. And then Stewie Dunbar's another one. Stewie Dunbar's a bit of an older head. I think he's 30 odd years old. Although he drinks piss like a fucking 21-year-old. But he's mate, he's an all-time bloke, and he's our sort of, I'd say, a spiritual leader. And I think we've got a good balance, a good dynamic in the team. We've got, as I sort of said, we've got a bunch of older guys who've been there and, molded the team well. And then we've got a bunch of new guys who come in and just completely bought into the program. So it sort of works well. We don't we cover all the bases, a couple of young guys, some old guys, and everyone's sort of just bought into the greater good for the team. But yeah, those four guys would be the main leaders. But I think, everyone in a way is a leader when you kind of get to this level, Benny. And I think it's sort of everyone's expected to show, their leadership skills and everyone does that as well, mate. So,
do you notice? Go, George.
I was going to say, going back to, you mentioned staying in the same hotel as a lot of the other teams and, socialising a little bit and then going out on the piss. Is there much cross-contamination between the males and the females in the circuit? Because you hear about it in the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games and stuff like that everyone's going at it like rabbits. Is it similar in the sevens?
To an extent, look, mate, I'm sort of like it definitely goes on, but I don't know how frequently, sort of thing. We kind of, you'd have to dive in, but it definitely happens. Which is, why shouldn't it happen? Like it's sort of, there's all a bunch of single girls and a bunch of single boys, and everyone sort of stays close to each other, and then goes out on the cans every now and then. It's sort of bound to happen, And I think it's all
George,
good.
George wants to make his transition to sevens aside. He's moving out of the front row.
Yeah, I'll have to drop 30 kilos maybe, but I reckon I can get it done.
Yeah, for sure. Nah, but it's a good, mate. It's not, and like it's whenever the nights are out, it's everyone gets on really well, and it's a good time. It's a good time sort of a party with the sevens, and not that it's all we do, sort of thing. It's just that, the ones. It's normally we usually go away for 2 weeks at a time. So, for example, the last one we had was New Zealand for a week, and then that leads into the Sydney week. So it's 2 weeks is normally go 2 or 4, and then it's the Sunday of the last week. So we won't get on the normally you won't sort of drink after the first weekend, but then a second weekend when you've sort of, that's the last weekend of touring, then you kind of have a few days off before you get back into training. That's the Sunday that usually there's sort of a function or event on. And that's sort of when you go and have your fun.
How did you, I know like when most people look at a 15s schedule, the team, gets at least half of their rounds are at home. When you're on the 7th circuit, I guess you only really get one home game, but it's more stretched out. That most recent tournament, how did you find? Obviously, probably not as much game time as you would have liked, was it?
Yeah.
How did you find it after? Obviously, immediately you've been gutted.
Yeah, mate. It was obviously, look, firstly, importantly, the team we didn't do. We were doing all right, and then we just had that tough loss against the French, which was just disappointing. And that kind of sucked the air out of us a little bit, and there was all the build up and sort of expectations, and we had high expectations on ourselves as well, So to kind of to lose that nail biter and that late Saturday night, and then backed up the next morning against a really good Samoan team, we just sort of didn't quite turn up, and then we paid for it. So that was a little bit disappointing. We would have loved to, and I think our team, Johnny tells us all the time that like we're as good as we want to, we can be, and on our day we, the best team in the comp, and beat anyone, as we showed when we won Hong Kong and London or whatever it may be. We just got to find that consistency. That's what we're just looking for at the moment. And then on a personal level, mate, you always sort of want to be playing and want to be getting as much game time as you like, and especially obviously being at home, and in front of you know, all the friends, whoever, everyone, your family come out. But you know, it is what it is. You can't go back and change anything. And no point of crying about spilt milk or sulking about it. You just sort of move on, and you know, I'm just going to try to train hard, and hopefully the next tournaments put my best foot forward and get some more minutes. And because it's a tough one with sevens. There's like, you know, 14 minutes a game anyway. So if you're kind of coming off the bench, you might only get a minute here or there or whatever it may be. So your window of opportunity is so small, and sometimes if you get on and you don't quite take your opportunities, or you get on there for a minute and you do something bad rather than something good, then it kind of again minimises your opportunity. So it can be tough like that, Seven. Sometimes if you get a bit behind the eight ball and you're struggling to get into rhythm, and I mean, like a lot of players, like personally, a lot of players are probably when you're playing your best footy, when you're playing a lot, you know, you've done that in the muscle memory, you got your confidence sort of thing. But when it's on the opposite and you're not playing and you're struggling for minutes, it can kind of make it a bit harder. So, but yeah, as I said, mate, you sort of the way you kind of beat that is just train hard and keep putting your best foot forward. And you know, when you get opportunities, you got to try and take them.
Yeah, very much so. Where I guess on a different tangent is, so far where you've been on the circuit, where's your favourite destination thus far?
London was pretty epic. London was my first time being in London, so I mean, obviously, you know, everyone knows how good a city that place is. And then we won. That was our first win as a team, that tournament. What was it, last May, June-ish, maybe, off the top of my head. So that was unreal. We had a great time. We had a great win in overtime against the Kiwis. So it was just sort of like everything fell into place, and it was unreal. So that was, yeah, London's always going to be hold a special place in my heart. Where else was Cape Town? Cape Town, if you guys have ever been, is another awesome place. Especially when you go there. We sort of went there recently in the summertime, in December last year. You know, just like great weather and the good-looking girls there, and Saffers, they go crazy for their footy, mate. You know, like it's a great big stadium down there in Cape Town, and but yeah, they're two probably that come to mind. But look, you know, next week the team's going to LA and Vancouver, which isn't too shabby either. So, but yeah, I'd say London's probably one that sticks out the most.
Was when you went to London, was your good mate Ben Bullitt over there yet or not?
Nah. He wasn't. No, I don't. Well, was he over there? Well, he might have been over there actually. Yeah, I think he was playing though. So he couldn't come out and watch playing or training. I think he might have been training. So we didn't end up being able to link up. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it across. Which is disappointing. But mate, he's killing it over there. I'm not sure if you've been sort of paying so much attention to him. Yeah,
George
mate,
actually plays against him.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Who do you play for, George?
Yeah, I'm at Doncaster at the minute.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. No, he's doing really well from all reports, and you know, I keep seeing him scoring tries, and he's always in the highlight reels, I'll be. But he had a awesome year. So last year to the Rats, when I was at the 7's, he had a really, really good year. And that's how he got picked up over there. So, but I speak to him quite frequently. We always keep in touch. I think he's coming back over in May. I think around in May, and depending on what sort of where we are, I might be hopefully here to catch him, because I think at May is when we also go to London. So it could work out that I'm actually over in London and he's here. So, but fingers crossed.
For the just for the listeners, you two went to school together, grew up playing junior footy together. Yeah, and you're both probably one of the two of the most competitive blokes I know. How was that at school?
Yeah, it was good. It was just sort of, I think it just both came quite naturally to us being competitive, and then like we played Manly Marlins juniors together when we would have been maybe around like 12, 13, you know, for a few years around that age. And he came to St. Augustine's in year 7, I believe. And then we we played rugby together a little bit, kind of yeah, and then like year 8, and then year 9 was when we sort of started to become a bit closer when he was properly playing footy, because Benny's biggest problem was he always used to get big injuries, so he sort of struggled to kind of string a full season of rugby together, sort of growing up, and then I think in year 10 he joined basketball, so then we started playing basketball together. So it was rugby all year in the winter, and then basketball in the summer, and then because we were doing both together, we just became so close, and then we'd carpool out to every basketball training session together, or I'd go to his place before we play, and other rounds, and then it just became like that, and then we just became sort of, spending so much time together, became best mates, and then I suppose, yeah, being so competitive helped us both just kind of, not that we were kind of competing for each other's spot with anything, but it was more so like we just both, we both, understood what we wanted to do. And so that we kind of both got each other, and like we both bounced off each other very well in sports, whether it's basketball or rugby. He sort of seems to know where I'm going to go, and vice versa. So I very much so miss playing sport with him. He's obviously a very talented person and a very good athlete, and it helps being one of my best mate. It helps sort of, you can sort of make some special moments of which we have over the years. So hopefully one day down the track, mate, we'll get to play together again, because it's pretty special.
Yeah, most definitely. Did I remember when you guys first came out of school and these two lanky blokes rock up to training, and I was like, man, this is like the second row pairing right here. How many times growing up did you get asked, or did you get assumed you were playing second row?
Yeah, all the time, mate. Still, if someone doesn't know me these days, they still ask the same thing. So, yeah, quite a bit. And then, but I mean, more so when I kind of got out of school, like my last year of school, and then even after school was when I sort of had a proper big growth spurts. I was a bit of a late bloomer on that side of things. But yeah, no, all the time. And sort of until they sort of see how skinny I am, and then they kind of go, yeah, makes sense that you're playing in the back.
Yeah, mate, you can always see you out of the crowd if you're out on Saturday night or whatever. That's for sure. Sticking those gangly arms up out the front.
Yeah, can't dance, bro. Too lanky to dance.
Yeah, you leave that to Benny Woolett. Talk us. You alluded to big injuries with Benny. You've only had what, like one or two yourself?
Yeah. Touch wood. I've been pretty lucky. I mean, the main one was not last year, the year before. I think it was about July. I popped my shoulder out playing against. I'm not sure. Were you still around for that year when I dislocated it playing the Marlins at home in first grade? So just at the end of the first half, sort of reached out scoring a try, and then the force of me, like my arm coming down, planted the ball, which just sort of popped out. So that was quite painful. I'm not sure if either of you two have ever done that, but that was sore. But that's mainly been the main one, to be honest. As I said, pretty lucky. A couple of little ankles here and there, playing basketball, but all in all, pretty. Oh, and then the hamstring was the sort of latest one when I got it in the 7's, but mate, I'm very lucky with how I've sort of been able to manage the injuries throughout.
With that shoulder injury and having to have surgery, that's a process to come back through, like any injury, but probably more so with that one. How did you find that being your first major injury and dealing with the process?
Yeah. Look, I think I was a bit surprised myself in terms of how I kind of, for the first few days I was a bit sulked a little bit after I'd done it, and why me, and because never, opposed to someone like Benny Woolett, like I never had a big injury, so I just sort of it was kind of like, why me, and this is the worst thing ever. And it was right at the time as well where I had a little bit of interest, so I was speaking to guys from the Waratahs, and not nothing sort of, but the conversations being had, so it was really bad, and I was having a decent year. And we were doing pretty well with the Raddies that year as well, right at the sort of halfway point of the season. So it was real, I sort of knew we could go pretty close that year with the Raddies. So it was pretty luckily that, well, not luckily, fortunately, you can sort of say for me that was the year got cancelled halfway through because of COVID that year. So I didn't miss out really on any. I missed out on one game, luckily. But after sort of that first literally couple of days, I sort of snapped out of it a bit, and like there's no point of sulking and no point of kind of kicking stones about it, and then just sort of got on with it, mate. And like it was the rehab and all of that was sort of sometimes you just kind of you don't feel like doing it, or you kind of can't be bothered, or whatever it is. But if you care enough and you want to get back to playing some good footy, you just have to do it. And that was my mindset, because I've heard a lot of people say, look, if you don't kind of get all your rehab in and do all the right things, then your shoulder could be buggered for a while, or it's not going to properly heal. So I was just, when I did get back to footy, I just wanted to make sure that I could go back and play footy again at the level that I wanted to, and that was sort of the main thing that drove me. So yeah, and also as I said, not missing out on too much footy definitely helped, because I wasn't going to Rat Park every weekend and watching the boys play and watching the boys win, and that would have been definitely a bit harder. But it was a good, the first sort of few days were the tough days, but then you just sort of pick yourself up and dust yourself off and get on with it.
Yeah. Did you find your mindset towards physical preparation kind of changed a little bit over that time?
Yeah, hugely. As you know, Benny, my physical preparation was horrible, and like I was sort of still was in. Oh, it's been better now playing sevens in a professional program where you got even allocated time slots to prepare yourself and mobility and all the stuff like that. So I've kind of somewhat been forced to kind of get stuck into it. But yeah, even more so just with my preparation and the way I sort of prepare myself before games and before trainings, and you don't want to go through a big injury like that again. So you could say it was a bit of an eye opener.
Yeah. And am I right in saying you got Mick Stephen in charge of your strength conditioning?
Yeah. Mick the Leb, we call him.
He runs a pretty tight ship, so he wouldn't be letting you get away with much, would he?
No. Leb's good. He's pretty onto it, and he's pretty the little things. He's pretty aware that the little things go a long way, and he's when we're on tour, he's on the WhatsApp and he's telling the boys, get these things done, your hydration, mobility. He's always got gear for the boys in terms of if they need any rollers or if they need any stretch bands. He's always there. If the boys need a hand, he's stretching. He's always hands on. He's very hands on that as well, and he cares a lot about the little things, and that goes a long way. So he's doing a good job.
Yeah, nice. I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this goes back to, I guess, being a competitor. I think it was when Darren Coleman was coaching at Warringah and you were fresh out of Colts, maybe reserve grade.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but it was a training night and you were obviously second grade that period of time, and I think the ball was turned over or something back to the first grade side, and you pretty much told him to beat it, to fuck off. Is that right, or am I bloody telling?
Yeah, no, you're along the right lines, mate. Along the right lines. And DC can probably attest to this, but he just, I didn't quite understand it when I was second grade and thought the world revolved around me and second grade kind of thing. So when we were training opposed, he kept on. First grade, we're getting a lot more starters and a lot more bites of the cherry, and then I sort of definitely didn't tell him to fuck off. I didn't go that far, but along those same lines, he just sort of said, "Look, righto, mate." Like I kicked up a stink, and I said, "Oh, you guys get it again," or something like that. And he said, "All right, what do you want?" And then I just screamed out the ball. So that was kind of yeah. Again, that was me being a bit young and sort of being a bit too eager and overstepping my mark as a player, which I have learnt not to do anymore. But I think the other thing is DC kind of, as much as he doesn't like getting lip off scrawny little 20-year-olds, he understands that and sort of respects the competitive nature that it's coming from, and me just sort of and part of me, and then the second grade team was training and just wanting to get the ball and wanting to win and wanting to show what we can do. And so he understood. I think, you know what I mean. Like, that's why he didn't really spray me or get up me or anything for it. But as I sort of said, and then what I've learned, time and place for everything. And when you're a player and you're a coach, the player sometimes just got to remember that he's a player, which is what I was at the time and what I still am. So, but yes, it did something along those lines did happen.
And I think there was another time. This wasn't to a coach though, where you were still playing under 20s. We were Manly Oval, obviously your old man, Manly great, and I think it was late in the second half when we were up, and you just kicked a conversion, and you turned to the Manly Hill, and you just flipped them 2 rude fingers, and just told them to beat it. I remember that vividly, and I just remember this guy doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
I used to just I mean, like nothing like a derby, and the Manly boys as well. I sort of said I kind of know a lot of the Manly boys and grew up with a lot of the Manly boys, and I like the Manly boys. Like, I would never see them around, have a beer, have a yarn on and sort of thing. But when you kind of Derby weekend was my favourite because it gave me a chance to kind of I love beating Manly, and that hill, because we used to play before first grade with a curtain raiser, and we dusted them that year, and I was just giving it to the hill the whole time because it just sort of gets them involved and fires me up a little bit as well. So, and it's a bit easier when we're up like 40 points to 10 on the scoreboard, and I'm kicking conversions right on the sideline in front of them. And so, look, I think looking back on it, I don't know what I was thinking, but it felt pretty good and pretty funny at the time. And then I know a lot of people, a lot of people in green and white liked it, and a lot of my mates liked it. But it's probably
the red and blue didn't like it. That was for sure.
No.
Mate, I remember running back with the tee with you then. I was just like, geez, wow. We spoke to Geordie Reid not long ago, and he obviously played for Manly before going on to play for the Rebels and over to the UK, and we asked him about local derbies, and he's played in a few local derbies. Who was the local derby he played for in UK, George? It was Gloucester versus...
it'd be Gloucester Bristol or Gloucester Bath. They're like the...
And he was saying like that was pretty intense, but he said he reckons Manly Warringah is probably either up there or not far behind, and at a shoot shield level. So I think it's like local derbies always get the best out of the competitive nature.
Oh, big time, and it's a good spectacle, mate. I sort of you miss, as lucky as I am to be playing footy and playing sevens and for Australia, when the Derby day comes along, it's something that I miss. You wish you were sort of playing in these games, but hopefully we get more to come. I reckon.
How's your head on a Monday after that weekend local derby?
After Derby, yeah, it's always pretty sore, especially after a win. Yeah, fuck yeah, so that was the only thing better than beating Manly was the party afterwards. As you sort of know.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we touched on earlier with like having to learn along the way when to bite your tongue and things like that, especially when you were under DC. How have you found as a player going into different environments, forging relationships with your coaches?
Yeah, good, man. I've never had an issue with getting a good relationship with a coach. I've always found I get on very well with all my coaches. I think sometimes where I have not that this happens frequently ever, but where I do have issues, where I want to have sort of had an issue with coaches in far is because I kind of get really comfortable with the coach and really build a good relationship, and then that's when I sort of sometimes overstep my mark, or I get a bit too competitive with things and sort of, as I said, overstep it a little bit. That's sort of where I sort of slip up. But I never had an issue, like John, the coach at the moment, we have a great relationship. Rivo, my older coach for the Rats, great relationship. So I've never had an issue, and that kind of not only with your coach but with players as well. I think I'm lucky that I'm someone who can get along with people really well, and people sort of tend to find a liking to me more often than not. And so same goes with coaches, with players, and everything, and staff for most of the time. Well, not being a little shit, as you know, Benny. So that's never really been an issue, and I've never had any issues, big issues with relationship with the coaches. And 99% of the coaches that I've had, I've still got a great relationship with. So it's just, as I said, just as I sort of getting older and getting a bit wiser, and you just sort of learn how to sort of handle different situations and where to kind of shut your trap when needed, and or when to give lip when needed.
You said you
were. Am I right? Go, George.
I was going to say, you're quite new to the professional environment, you were saying, and obviously a lot of the stuff that you touched on is basically highlighting how competitive you are as a person. Have you tapped into the mental side of the game with, psychologists or mental skills? Have you delved into that at all?
Oh, mate, look, not as much as I would have liked to. Not as much as I would have liked to. I'm sort of at the moment, especially, I'm sort of a bit down on form, and ties back into kind of not playing a lot of footy, bit down on form, and a lot down on confidence with my footy, which I haven't really ever experienced. Sort of, kind of going up to the end of school, and the Colts have sort of, been able to sort of play some good footy for quite a while into grade, first grade sort of stuff. So this is kind of, now has been like, this has been the main, like, the kind of the worst sort of form patch I've hit in a long time. And I'm sort of struggling with that at times, because someone who holds yourself at such high standards, and as a very competitive person, and you want to be playing and you want to be winning and you want to be doing well, when you're not doing any of those things and it's your job, it's sometimes, it has been sort of affecting me a little bit, not saying that I'm struggling big time or anything, but it sometimes can be disappointing. So, and I have sort of kind of contemplated seeing a sports psychologist. I think it's something that I probably haven't given enough, serious thought onto. We have, I'm sure there's sort of resources through the Australian Rugby that you can kind of tap into that. I just haven't even looked into it, mate, to be fair. But I think, you bring up a very good and valid point. And I know, actually, speaking of Benny Woolett, he saw a sports psychologist over in the UK, I believe, and had a good yarn. So I think it's something that, is definitely worth doing sooner rather than later as well. But yeah, to answer sort of your question, not as much as I would have liked.
Yeah.
Because when we spoke to, we had James Haskell on last week, and he was saying he's been seeing, how young was he when he first started seeing his psychologist, George?
I think he was about 19.
Oh, shit.
19, and he's still seeing the same one.
Yeah, nice.
So he'd be what, close to 40 now, something like that.
Yeah, close to 40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's I think like we had when we had him on, we had a conversation about how preparing for sport is just as much psychological as it is physical, and tactical. Like, I think that psychological side of things sometimes gets wiped over a bit, or just breezed past. And I think it's like, the mind controls everything before anything else, really.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate, 100%. I think it psychologically, if you're not turned up, if you're not ready to go, and that actually very much so ties into sevens, because with the sevens, especially the men's, it's such a close competition. I mean, there's, I reckon, 6 teams, potentially even 8 teams that can, when they turn up on the day, can win a tournament. So when you're all sort of very close and you're very physically and skill wise very close, it doesn't separate much. It all comes down to who turns up mentally on game day. And you might have a good first game, a good second game, and then comes to a quarter or comes to an important pool game, and you're not switched on mentally because the boys are a bit tired, or whatever it may be, then that's all it takes in sevens, and then you lose the game and then you're out. Then you're in the bottom half of the draw. So I think the mental side of things is even more so enhanced when you're playing 6 games over a tournament or over 2 or 3 days. and you need to be turned up, switched on, ready to go every game, because they're the teams who usually that'll be the team that wins it.
Yeah, no doubt. I guess switching lanes quickly now is there anyone in the group, the current squad, that's just like a real larrikin of the squad that you can guarantee is going to just cheer the boys up?
Yeah, as I sort of mentioned before, Stewie Dunbar is pretty good at that. He's him and I sort of bounce off each other pretty well. He's a good laugh. Moz Longbottom, he's cheeky little bugger. He's always good for it. But mate, James Turner, as I sort of said, mate, we're all pretty good in that. We're not like, you know, we all like to have a good laugh. We all don't mind taking the piss. And that's good, because, you know, when you're coming into work every day, if you're not sort of enjoying who you're turning up with, and you don't enjoy the environment, then it makes it hard to go out and do good things on game day, you know. So I think I'm very much so a believer in your culture is almost everything. I mean, apart from, you know, your X's and O's and your work ethic, and I know there's a lot of other things that go with it, but the culture is a big part of it. And I'm massive on culture, and the culture we have at the Sevens. I know, you know, with Rats was the same, Benny. We had an awesome culture at the Ratties. That's why we did pretty well most of the time. But at the Sevens is the same, mate. The Sevens is everyone's bought in, and everyone likes each other's company, and I think that's a catalyst for success in a lot of situations.
Yeah, definitely. Would there be amongst that group? Would there be a party trick that sticks out to mind? One, at least anything you can share. Anything you can share?
Party trick, man. Far out. Not that it comes to mind straight away. I'd have to try and think. Especially one that I can actually say. But to be honest with you, there's not even too many that I can think of that is X-rated. But I'll come back to you. I'll have a think. I'll come back to you. But there's the boys, the few of the boys that can definitely hold their own on the piss, which is good.
Yeah, nice. There's I know George has a few party tricks up his sleeve.
I'm not allowed to talk about them on camera.
So how are you guys going this year, George?
We've had a bit of we're sitting like fifth, I think, at the minute.
Okay.
And last year we had a great season, like won the most games in the league, finished second, annoyingly, missed out by 2 points. And we lost a lot of good players. We had a couple lads go to the Premiership. We had a lad go to Pro 14. We had a couple lads retire. And we just didn't replace them with that quality. And although we kept a large core of the squad, key positions, your tight heads, your second rows, you know, certain back rows, those are the positions that we lost and we didn't really replace. But we're going all right, mate. I mean, if we can finish top four by the end of the season, that'll be a result. But I don't think we'll get promoted, even though we've been given the green light to go up.
Okay.
But yeah, mate, we'll be all right. Yeah, I think top four finish should be doable.
Okay, yeah, because I was speaking to Benny, who obviously plays for Jersey, and he was sort of saying that even if they finish first, they're not gonna get promoted because on the back of I think maybe money thing, and maybe I think like a crowd, like a supporter stand as well, or
I think they've been told even if they win the league in 2024, so a while away, 2024, 2025, they still can't go up because they don't have the ground and they don't have the funding, which is a shame, really. But it goes back to that same argument around the Championship that people have been crying out for years, which is needs more money, needs more exposure. But look, Jersey are going very well, to be fair. They are. I reckon they could win it potentially.
Because they beat Ealing recently. Hey, in the cup, was it? I saw.
Yeah, in the cup. Yeah, but even then, those both those teams are pretty stacked. That might as well have been a league game, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
It's something that's kind of tricky to get your head around because we don't really have it over in Australia, at least like a relegation system.
Yeah. It's not a bad. I don't reckon it's a bad system at all. I think it's quite good, but I don't know. I can't see Australia rugby doing it, but it's good. I don't mind the idea.
It's bad if the team that goes up gets absolutely fingered every single week.
Yeah.
That's when it's bad. Like London Welsh went up 5 years ago, and they were losing every game by 60, 70. And it almost becomes pretty pointless.
Pointless, yeah. No, for sure. Is it changed a little bit now? Because I know recently, there's a few premiership teams that folded, and then is that right? They kind of
So Wasps and Worcester. So Wasps have come down to the championship, and Worcester have now ceased to exist. Effectively, they'll be named as something else, but they won't be competing in the championship or the Prem. There is talk of the RFU doing 2 leagues of 10, where every team in that league has to be full-time professional or you can't get in. And then that way it creates more of a product where it might get some TV rights. It creates a bit of media and, someone could get promoted or relegated. But again, it all comes down to funding and finance. And right now, everyone's pretty struggling. So we'll see, mate. But I mean, if it does go that way, where it is all full time again in the championship, and it can lead to promotion, I think it would be great for the sport. But now, I just can't see it.
Yeah. Tough. And Benny, are you over in the UK? Benny, are you?
No. I'm back in Sydney.
Okay, whereabouts are you?
Sydney, yeah. I'm still in the Northern Beaches.
Up at Av?
Still in the Northern Beaches, yeah, mate.
Nice.
So
always
not far from you. That's it. So yeah, mate. Just doing this podcast and doing some coaching still. So it's all going well.
And how's the podcast been? So obviously doing a much better. Right? You got Hask and a few Geordie Reid and stuff. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So and we had Benno on our first episode, which was good laugh and mate.
Who?
Benno Urbano.
Okay.
Plays for Bath.
Bath in England. He's got a good story.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just good crack, isn't it? It's good fun.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome that you're doing it, boys. I've wanted to. I think a lot of blokes do, but doing a podcast is fucking unreal and something that I'd always want to do. So it's awesome that you guys are getting cracking on with it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, mate. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate your time and wish you all the best for the upcoming tournaments.
Mate, we've got one more question that we normally that we will ask every guest. What's one myth about being a rugby player?
One myth?
Yeah.
I don't know. One myth about being a rugby player. What's been said previously?
That you get loads of birds.
I thought that was going to be it. I thought it was going to be you. Well, mate, to be honest with you, being an Aussie Sevens player in Sydney, it's not like that many people know who you are anyway. So it's not. I wouldn't say. Unless you sort of know me, because where Benny and I live, it's Northern Beaches. Everyone sort of fucking knows everyone. So on the Northern Beaches, a few people probably know that I played professional footy, but outside of that, mate, like you walk into a bar, no one knows who the fuck I am, and no one gives a fuck anyway. So, I suppose that's true to an extent. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm trying to think what other myths are. You're definitely not invincible. That's for sure. But nah, I don't know, boys. Sorry, got nothing for you.
Mate, that's enough. You've confirmed the other two. Mate, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
No
mate.
worries, boys. Appreciate it. All the best. And if you ever need anything or anything, give us a yell.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks,
Good luck for the rest of the
All
season.
the best.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, lads. All the best. Have a good one.
See you.